I'm doing that thing again. That thing where I come back from uni, come back from a lecture, from doing readings on the bus, and listening to podcasts or whatever, and all manner of things, and wanting to blather on in front of my camera again, because thinking things is something that happens a lot to me, which one would hope is a good thing. I would certainly suggest it is as such. But, at the moment, of course, I'm sitting here having an essay due this evening, and by evening I mean middle of the night, but that's beside the point. Basically, I've been handling a lot of concepts recently, doing a lot of reading of things, and thinking about stuff, and just being a giant nerd. So this is for propaganda and advertising. It's a screen media paper, and we're looking at these modes of public communication. You've got your political modes, your public information stuff, and your advertising, right? Cool. 3 categories, fairly simple, whatever. We're not really approaching entertainment as such. Because it's not so much a public communication as it is, I don't know, artistic communication. Either way, we're just not so much dealing with it. But anyway, so we have this reading. It's James Connelly, Patrolling the Boundaries of Politics, Collingwood Political Analysis and Political Action. Hilariously enough, we're not using it just for when we're looking at politics. We're looking at it for everything. Because it approaches a number of concepts about considering rationale and making distinctions, and conceptual overlap is the big one that we get told to, like, please approach that in your essays. I gave you the thing, that's the thing, the rationales and the conceptual overlap, off you go. It's, just, you know how it is, where they just are really like, here's the concept that we want you to get. Here it is. Take a good look at it. And to put it quite briefly, what's sort of amassed in these, 12 pages? I won't even get started on the other 12 or so pages, but in these 12 or so pages, what's generally amassed is the idea that when it comes to these sorts of things, it's mostly a case of, that's my best guess. We don't really know, because things don't fit into nice little boxes. Which I think most people dealing in media, artistic stuff, creative stuff, have to come to terms with that particular of the fields, really. It's just a fact. That's how they work. And it terrifies people from fields that function in an entirely empirical fashion, who strive for objectivity, who strive for, this distancing of the author and trying to be as accurate as possible. And in arts, facts are a matter of consensus, of observation, until they change. It's, unlike science, it's not until we find out better, or, make a discovery that disproves. It's, this is true, this is a fact, until literally enough people decide that it isn't. And it trips up a lot of people from other areas that, poor biology students trying to get some extra credit in creative writing. But, which, my pities to them, because they get so confused by the whole way in which we think over in arts departments, and even peripheral to arts departments, because we don't deal in these kinds of hard rules, hard facts. There's always room to be kind of right, or kind of wrong, even if you think you aren't. And, we play with that risk. We deal with it all the time. It's just there. And that's life. The other thing, perhaps, that we're endeavouring to gain from this is just the fact that you can't look at everything in the same way, because it doesn't work. You can't judge, or, well, to be honest, the judging of things is a fairly odd endeavour anyway, but that's beside the point. You can't interpret an advertisement in the same manner that you might a public information piece of communication or a political piece of communication, because they function differently, their intents are different, and they employ all sorts of different things that they do, like all, creative endeavours, a fair amount of borrowing. We'll just pilfer this from over here, this aesthetic, this technique, this, that, and the other thing. And because they fundamentally are often functioning in the same mediums, with the same media as tools of their expression, of their communication, there's no, fundamental jarring difference in technique between those three modes. It's really quite, one might say, content-based, except that elements of their contents can be quite similar as well, and it makes distinction that much more difficult when you try to do it in a highly refined and sophisticated fashion. But the reality of it is that most people can look at something and go, oh, that's political communication, that's a politics thing, instantly. Somebody can look at something and go, oh, that's an ad by the transport, people telling us not to speed during winter. That's a public information, public service kind of motivated thing that has been put into your sphere, and you're just like, oh, I know what that is. You look at an ad and you go, that's an ad. It's very seldom that you'll look at something and be confused as to where you would actually place it. And that's because people are very good at making these sort of loose and loose distinctions, unlike computers. Computers can't handle it. Computers don't like uncertainty. Computers don't like dealing with that kind of those kinds of soft notions. They like hard rules, hard numbers, and that's how they work. But we're not computers. We're people. So we deal in, well, clearly, despite the fact that that piece of advertisement is trying to appeal to some sort of moral sense, it's still an ad. It's a thing that's trying to make money and, serve us a purpose, and it doesn't matter if they're cleaning product, critiquing parenting in order to do so. We know that it's an ad regardless, and not actually a notice on childcare, on healthcare or anything else. It's an ad. We know this. It's quite a wonderful thing to think that we might think so deeply about why and how we're good at doing that, and how we might then go about analysing such things. And I don't know really where else I'm going with this. This is rather dragging on. But again, I'm using this for my own purpose. I will probably go back through it and try and note a lot of the things I've just said for the purposes of my essay. But it makes the encountering of publicly broadcasted communications. How did I start that sentence? Oh, I don't know. Either way, I'm really tired. I'm gonna have a drink. It's Mountain Dew. It's not as flat as I would have expected. If it's not clear, I've also been watching a lot of Digibro lately, and was too lazy to take my sunglasses off when I got in from outside, because I couldn't quite decide whether it was sunny or rainy, but regardless, I there was a bit of glare, so I put my sunglasses on and I just left them there, and I think it aesthetic homage to Digibro, rather than me just not quite bothering to take off anything other than my raincoat. I'm rather hungry. It's lunchtime, and media's complicated, man. You can't deal with it with numbers and objectivity and an empirical methodology. It doesn't work. It just doesn't. As evidenced by all of this. What's my thing that I say? Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whatever. Till I record another thing.